Coming up tonight on Game All Night, Asdruval, Cifuentes, the retro board gamer. This week and each week is brought to you by Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience on Kickstarter now.
Welcome to Game All Night.
Well, hello and welcome to yet another Game All Night. Tonight, I am going to be joined by Mr. Asdruval Cifuentes. He's sitting in the green room as we speak, or the room de verde, I guess we'll call it today. Maybe that doesn't work. I don't remember, Dan. I'm the worst human ever. I can't even be patronizing when I want to be. Oh, that's horrible. But what's not horrible is your service. I'm joined by Bartender Dan. And you poured something special tonight, I do believe.
Oh, I'm excited about this one. This is a gift from our good friend Gil Mello, Mr. Dwarf Token. Ground Control from Ninkasi Brewing, a real cool small brewery out of Eugene, Oregon. And it's an imperial stout and a nice bitter, bold imperial stout, which is dear to my black heart, having been trained on Storm King here, but with the cool wrinkle that they actually brewed this with ale yeast that went on a round trip to space and back. So they loaded up the yeast on a rocket, sent it out, and then when it came back, went ahead and brewed this bourbon barrel aged imperial stout. They're really cool. Some really cool art on that guy too.
Yeah, it's a pretty wicked bottle. I've been saving it for a little bit, but in honor of the fact that Gil was on our recent show, we did a little live playthrough with him. I thought, you know what? Now's a great time to break it out. What do you think? It's big and it's smooth and it's everything
smooth?
It should be.
I don't know if smooth is fair. I think of Old Rasputin.
Okay.
It's a smooth imperial stout. This has that high bitterness.
Okay.
That I think of as the sort of the Storm King branch of imperial stouts, which is the ones that are my favorite. So I think it's lovely. It's a real nice balance between the maltiness and that bitterness. I don't know that I'm getting a lot of space flavors here, but but it's a lovely beer.
I think you need to drink a lot more, and then those flavors come out. But I could just be making that up. But let's get Mr. Asdruval out of the green room and ask him the question. Are you drinking anything tonight with us, sir?
Hello. Good old-fashioned Coke.
All right, we're staying on brand. We hope to one day be sponsored by Coke, so I'm fine with that. I figure we got to aim big.
Yeah, the brewery that you guys are drinking out of is not far from where I live, so Matt, got something that in common?
Yeah, well, you're up in the Pacific Northwest, am I not mistaken?
That is correct, yes.
Awesome. So you get that nice, warm, soggy weather like we get, but you get it all the time.
Yeah, it's thundering right now as we speak.
Okay, so if your picture disappears out of nowhere, we have a good excuse why. So Mr. Cifuentes, you come from one of those illustrious Dice Tower alums. You grew out of doing bits on the board game Blender, if I'm not mistaken. Is that where you started?
That's correct. Board Game Blender, may she rest in peace. But yes, I started with Board Game Blender, and they were kind enough when the show ended, everybody could roll over into Board Game Breakfast. But yeah, that's where I got my humble beginnings. And it's just steamrolled from there.
Steamrolling. So the steamroller took you on an adventure recently where you and I ran into each other and kind of cemented this need to get you on the show because we were just recently at Origins and you were working for Restoration Games.
Yeah, I've been demoing games for them since their inception. Was with them at their first Gen Con.
Okay. And
I demo games, and I've done a couple videos for them also.
Cool. I saw you did a Fireball Island one. I thought that was pretty good. I mean, you're like, I love the old one, but...
Is that the GIF that I did where I catch it and throw it away, and then the old one the new one comes into my hands?
Yep, I love that.
Or is it okay? There's another one on the Restoration Games YouTube channel, and they do have a YouTube channel, and it's a little story that I do with my son. My son plays a younger version of me that gets Fireball Island as a Christmas present. You guys got to go back and watch it.
Oh, I'm gonna have,
hilarious.
You know what? I'll have to reach out and see if they'll let me snag that and drop that in because I love the crew over there.
Yeah, he plays the 1986 version of me, my younger son, and he keeps. You guys got to watch it. It's hilarious. It introduces the new version, and it was a coming soon to Kickstarter. Fireball Island, the Curse of Volcar. But it's hilarious, and the film shoot was fun, and my son did a great job because he wasn't having any of it. He just was not having a good time. We just kept on making him things do over and over. No, you got to do it again. You got to do it again. He just was not having it. But he did a good job.
So I guess he doesn't want the child acting career is not really taking off for him then, just kind of.
No. Yeah.
But it's got to be great that you have an asset like, a mini you to be able to pull off something like that, because me sitting here without a child, I don't think I could throw a little cat down there and pull that off. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
Awesome. So your shtick, if I'll call it shtick, is that you enjoy playing old board games. Now, is it because you're nostalgic for them, or is it really because you've never stopped?
I'm a lifelong board gamer. I've been playing board games since the day I can remember. I just used to get these board games, and we grew up pretty poor, so most of my board games were secondhand, and they were always missing the rules. 9 times out of 10, the game had no rules, so we'd get the box, and we just have to kind of guess how to play these games. And excuse me, all the time we guessed wrong.
Oh, of course.
So of course, I found it interesting that when I got older, and my mother was a pack rat, so she kept all this stuff. When I got older, I started hunting down, okay, how do you actually play this game? And to find out that we were completely wrong, which was hilarious. But it's just for me, it's the simplicity of the game, how designers thought back then to where we are today. There's a huge gap, and how almost every game was essentially the same thing. It was you roll, you move, you did whatever, you landed on the space, just with a different theme on it. Every once in a while, you'd find something that was really different and radical about these old games, but primarily that's all it was. And that's what I just like doing, is just searching these old games because they're just silly. It's just silly fun.
Are there any that kind of stick out in your memory, like from your childhood, that kind of were very distinct at that specific time in your life?
The game changer for me was when Dark Tower came out. I didn't realize that a board game could be like Dark Tower was. Of course, I didn't own it when it originally came out because my mother thought it was dynamic, but
satanic panic.
To buy it. Yeah, she refused to buy it. I mean, even when it was on clearance, she refused to buy it. I mean, I had to buy it later on the secondary market, which was like $300. But yeah, that for me, that was the beginning of what board games. I think I realized what a board game could be like is when Dark Tower hit.
It's funny that you mention that because it's I have a similar recollection. There's a couple games, but there's a couple that really stand out. And one of them was, for me, Stop Thief. You know, that was one that when I was a kid and playing with that scanner, even though I really didn't have a ton of people to play with and stuff, I still love I could more or less play it by myself and, still have all that same fun. And it's funny, and this is far from a Restoration Games plug, that they started with Stop Thief and they're bringing out Dark Tower. They're launching that Kickstarter later this year. So I think we're in tune with Justin and them over there as far as what we like. So,
right. But by far, Fireball Island, because they have a survey on their website. Any old games that you guys can think of, tell us what you think out to the public. And the number one game was Fireball Island, and the number two game was Dark Tower.
But no, Fireball Island was a blast. How many times have you got to play it? Do you play it a lot? Does it come out a lot?
I do. It does come out a lot. I have it set up on a table already, so I don't have to set it up. It seems that every time I have game night, I'll have I think I play Fireball Island maybe 3 times a month.
Wow.
I just leave it set up. It's just awesome fun, and everybody's laughing, and the best is when somebody's just about to win and they get knocked over by an ember or a fireball. It's hilarious.
So did you have that when you were a kid? Did you have Fireball Island at all?
That was another one that I didn't have. Okay. And that was another one that I had to get on the secondary market. The weird thing about the games that are really expensive now is that back then they were literally on clearance. Like they were trying to get rid of it and no one was buying it. And now they're worth a lot of money. So if I had a time machine, I'd go back and just scoop them all up, and
sure,
make a small little fortune.
So what other games kind of stood out from that time period? Like, what if you couldn't afford like Dark Tower and Fireball at the time? What's the thing that you played the most then?
One of the games that I remember was Crossbows and Catapults. It's an old lakeside game. You played on the floor, and you actually have these little plastic crossbows and catapults that you shoot carom chips into your opponents. You build a wall, and you try to knock down the wall. I did have that one, and I played that a lot. And the only reason why I had it is because a friend of mine was that owned it. He would bring it over to my house and we'd play it, and he, I guess, grew up, so he just gave it to me. Or he was interested in girls at the time. I don't know. So he goes, "Here, I'm getting rid of some of my stuff. You want this? I'll take it. I'll take your G.I. Joes too, and your Masters of the Universe. Yeah, give them all to me."
Did he have the USS Flag, like that huge like aircraft carrier? That thing was like literally the aircraft carrier was what, 8 feet long? It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think I got that, but I did get a lot of his stuff. But yeah, I remember playing a lot of.
Now, is that the kind of you got to get down and lay on the ground, like get rug burns?
It has to be playing on a linoleum floor or a hardwood floor because the chips need to slide across the floor. A plastic table, a really long plastic table works good. When I got older and I couldn't get on the floor anymore, so I sat on the table. I tried playing on the floor. I go, I don't think I can get up after this game.
Like, yeah, I can't play with you, son, because I can't get back up off the floor. So there has to be a game that kind of, I mean, I'm sure Dark Tower was there, but what game did you acquire later in your life that really kind of took you back to the childhood? Because, I mean, come on, let's be honest. You're not really, I think you're in this somewhat for mechanics, but I think that there's a huge nostalgia factor and retro collecting, maybe things you couldn't get or couldn't attain because they weren't available or things like that. I think we try to fill little holes in things. I mean, I have an electric trucking set in the other room that was like, I had to go buy that because it was from my childhood. So I get it. But what's one that kind of really jumped out and you were so happy to find?
Growing up, we only had one TV set, and we were only allowed an hour of TV a day. So I was very selective with my TV shows. So whenever I can find, I didn't realize this back then, but what I'm realizing now is pretty much every big TV show had a board game involved.
You're not wrong,
yeah,
I don't think.
I mean, it's, Chips, Welcome Back Kotter, The Fall Guy, Dukes of Hazzard, all these shows that I watched. And those games for me are really cool when I find them and really cool when I play them, because it takes me back to the time where, I could only watch 1 hour of TV a day. And it just reminds me of for me, I guess, a simpler time.
You had one very important choice in your life every day that you had to make, and getting out the TV guide. And I mean, because we didn't have DVRs, we had to sit in front of the TV at X time and figure out what you're going to watch. I mean, that's pretty big for when you're young. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And, like I said, today we got, 5 million channels, and luckily we have a DVR. We can just, hit record. So it really does. We don't really have to sit there. We can just watch it, at 1 a.m. if we want.
Exactly. So how did that? I'm curious. How did that TV restriction? How does that kind of shape how you raised your children? Because you have 2, right?
I have 3 actually. I have an older daughter and 2 younger children. I decided it was a good idea to go back for seconds. So. It's totally different now because, I don't know, they live their lives in front of their iPads,
Okay.
But I really can't complain because I'm the one that bought it for them, and I could tell my son, no, you're not going to play, but for whatever reason he does anyway. So I try to think back. Why was I so afraid of my parents for? Why did I listen to them and my son doesn't even listen to me?
I think there was a level of fear back then, but
I mean, have you seen my parents on my show before?
I have. Your dad intimidates me.
Yeah, I mean, right now they're like 4'0", and it's like I was afraid of growing up, I didn't understand. But no, I think it's the fact that they would, if I defied them, they would probably beat me back then, you know, and and I don't know. Is it possible to restrict a child these days in that aspect? I'm not sure.
Well, does it at least? Well, if anything, it has to make you more aware of the time they spend and maybe try to present alternatives for that time and things like that, right?
Right. But you know, I guess if saying for anything, my son is extremely good at, you know, these first-person shooters. You know, the Call of Duties and stuff, and he literally has been playing since he was like 2 years old. Literally, like online with adults. 2. And I mean, I can't even get my fingers to work like that. I don't know.
Interesting. So with those parenting tips, I think this is a great time to take a brief break and listen to the sweet dulcet tones of Mr. Patrick Hillier, and he'll tell you some dad puns in the process. So we're going to be right back after this. Game All Night is a proud member of Punchboard Media. Be sure to check out tons of other great shows at punchboardmedia.com. Pontifications with Patrick Hillier.
The furniture store keeps calling me to come back. But all I wanted was one night stand.
And welcome back. If you need to see a doctor about that stitch in the side of your belly, you're going to have to wait another 20, 40, whatever minutes it takes for me to get through with Mr. Asdruval. Thank you, Mr. Patrick, for that one. But we're here to interview you, Asdruval. So what kind of defines you as, I mean, you got the handle Retro Board Gamer. I mean, like, that to me is kind of amazing, because that seems like something many people do, but then not a lot of people put it out there. So what kind of precipitated you doing this?
Right. Well, I had, you know, I don't even know how many retro games I had. I stopped counting at about 250, and that was years ago, and I still keep acquiring these things, you know. So pretty soon I'm going to run out of space to put all these. But when Z Garcia got hired on to be a full-time employee for the Dice Tower, he had put out a call that he was starting a new show like Board Game Breakfast, which was going to be Board Game Blender. And I was sitting there and I said, well, you know, maybe I should do something where I showcase some of these older games. You know, my mission statement to him was, when I emailed him, I said, you know, maybe this will work, maybe this might not work, but just to show these old games, and maybe people, you know, remember them. Maybe people say, oh, that's really cool, or that they never knew existed. And he got back to me right away, and he said, great idea, you know, send me a couple minute tryout video, and we'll see what you got. So I'm all, okay, I can talk about retro games, not a problem. So I remember shooting this test video, a 2-minute long video that took me like 9 hours to do, because, you know, they'd action, and then I just go, what do I
say? You just freeze up, talking to no one.
Yeah. Just talk about the game. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's how it started. And I sent them video, and I said, I'm never going to hear from them again. I said, this is a horrible idea. I'm horrible at it. I don't know what I'm doing. And they got back to me, and they go, you know, you're on the show. And I'm all like, I was so pumped and jazzed that I was on the show. And in fact, I was on Blender from beginning to end. Me and Mark Street are the only two people from beginning to end that did the entire show. And it was back then we had a theme.
Right.
Every show had a theme, so I really had to think. Now, what game can that fits well with the theme? And it made me really think about what to showcase. But now that there is no theme, I'm just going in order. Okay, you're next. You're next. You're next.
I like how high he's reaching. You saw that, right? Like the games are all the way up there.
Yeah, those stacks go over his head, as we've heard before.
Yeah.
So I'm actually really curious.
You know.
I've mentioned before that I'm into retro video games, which is a niche that has gathered, a significant community at this point. There's a whole world, basically, of folks like us who are all playing older games, 1998 and before. How have you found, in the years that you've been doing this, like, are there other folks out there who are very much your people, who are into the same scene you're in? I mean, obviously you're talking to everyone's nostalgia, but do you have, like, a fellow tribe out there that follows the same passion?
I don't know if we'd call it a tribe, but the conventions that I have been at, a lot of people are coming up to me and saying, I own some of these games, and they're very happy that somebody is bringing these games out into the forefront, and that kind of piqued my curiosity. I started looking at YouTube. Any kind of person that does retro games, there's a couple of them have been launched only within the last 5 or 6 years that people have been actually reviewing old board games. And that's another question that I get asked a lot is like, when are you going to start your own YouTube channel? It's like, I barely have time to do a 3-minute segment every week. I don't know. Kudos to everybody, every content creator out there that has anything like this and has a regular job, because it is hard work. It is work.
Oh, especially when you consider pretty much everybody doing it is very self-taught. Right? Like, I want to add this effect, and then like 15 YouTube videos later, you might be able to figure it out. It's not easy to figure out everything. But I would encourage you at least maybe to upload your segments. I think that would be even just an awesome start.
Yeah, that's something like that. I definitely, I have been, like I said, have been asked a lot. And I need to act on it, while the match is hot.
Yeah. Or, 40 years old. I mean, either one is great.
When you're reviewing topical games from 1979, it's really critical.
There's no rush.
Find your moment.
But Bartender Dan, I don't know if I kind of rambled off there, but yes, there are people out there that still love the old board games, and I also love when the people come up and say, hey, I love the history of board games, and what you're doing is great. I just love when people come up to me and appreciate what I'm doing on the Dice Tower.
Yeah, I think it's important, like, that everyone hears a voice of someone who's able to show the right love for something like this, because it can seem like you're in a vacuum sometimes if you still like are someone who appreciates this sort of thing, and the whole board gaming world, the hobby board game, is talking about other stuff. It's good to hear someone's voice who's like, oh yeah, that's a valid interest in something. There's a reason I have this love still in my heart.
Not to mention, I think it's important for people to see that it's here you go. It's not like Monopoly, right? So the same words we get annoyed at for our hobby, for the retro games, it's got to be even worse, because, everybody just thinks, oh, it's an old game, it's a roll and move game, when that's not the case at all. There was a lot of physical games, there's a lot of dexterity games, and there's some pretty interesting games. And the one time you kind of popped up on my feed was not too long ago when I was playing The Inventors with Patrick Hillier. And, all of a sudden you pop in, you're like, I know that game. And I'm like, Of course you would, but it's still this is a game that was like from my wife's childhood. We happened to be walking by the game table, saw it. It turned out to be Patrick's, and I'm like, well, we kind of have to play it. And it's got yes, it's a roll and move, but there's a lot of really cool little things going on in that game that, were very, very much kind of I don't want to say ahead of its time, but very designery and fun.
Yeah. And then another weird thing is that most of these games, it's not like today where the designer's name is splattered on the box.
Right.
You don't know who did any of these games back in the day. Maybe some of the bigger ones, but some of the little obscure games that were sold in the Kmart's or whatever stores were back then. You don't know who made these games. You have no idea. And you can't give these people props for making these games like you can nowadays.
Yeah, and it also hurts from the fact that we can't deep dive on a designer who might resonate with us either. Like we might do with an author, right? We find a book we love, we tend to go through a lot of other books they've done. It's the same thing with the game. If a designer does a great game, then I'm probably going to like more of his stuff. We can't even really use that as a guide. You got to say, well, no. Parker Brothers put this out, so maybe?
That's all I know. Let me buy another Parker Brothers game.
I'm sure this will work out. Nothing can possibly go wrong at all. So you did mention a couple things about your family. Like you started the show alone. I remember early on you did some interesting games. You did some games I remember from my childhood being on TV. You did the chopper one with the clear plastic acrylic that the helicopters went on top of the terrain?
Chopper strike.
Right. Like I remember that, but I remember that because I used to steal my brother's copy and play with all the helicopters. That's what I used to do. Okay. Because I was a little too young for that. My brother got all the cool games, but you did it by yourself, and then later on, you started to bring your father into the show. Is that correct? He was a willing participant?
Not at all. Unwilling to the T. Unwilling participant. Every time we have, and the ideas normally come from my brother. I do have some input, but my brother has the ideas because he likes to bug my father the most. I mean, we used to have a contest, me and my brother, who can get my father more mad, me or my brother. We used to tease the crap out of him, and now that he's really old, it's, I guess, more funner. I don't know. I'm going to hell. I'm telling you. But those reactions from him is he's not acting. He does not want to be there. He does not want to do it. He's just upset the entire time. So we just made it a shtick that, okay, just sit there. And the thing is that sometimes his direction is just sit there and look straight at the camera, and sometimes he messes that up.
So he listens very well.
Yeah, exactly. My mother, on the other hand, she's always game for whatever. I think she's more like me. She is not afraid to make a fool out of herself on camera.
Interesting. So you and your brother were twins. Are you identical twins?
We are identical twins.
Did you have any fun with that when you were a kid? Did you play with anybody?
Not as much fun as we should have had. Like I said, we should have been switching classes. We should have been switching well, we didn't have any girlfriends, but we should have been switching classes. Because we look pretty much alike. And it was funny. Last year at Gen Con, I was my brother came with me, and he was working the Restoration Games booth also. But I was off doing a demo in a different hall, and I guess my brother said that a guy came up to him and said, "Oh man, I really love your segment." And my brother said, "Oh no, that's my twin brother." And the guy just looked at him for a second, and then he goes, "Bro, if you don't want to talk to me, just say you don't want to talk to me. Don't lie to me."
Wow.
The guy got really upset.
Wow. It's that's pretty funny. The I kind of, there's part of me that always kind of wanted a twin, but I'm kind of happy to be the youngest child because the benefits that brings. But it's got to be fun for your parents because I find it funny that you say you kind of behave like your mother. Your brother kind of behaves like your father. Is that because like they had to tag team you and take you one at a time, or?
Yeah, I think definitely that I got my mother's. My brother's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more serious, and I'm just, whatever. I'm just whatever. But definitely, I think that we kind of split our personalities there a little bit. I am the older one by 15 minutes, and I never let him forget that.
That's a long time to leave the other.
I guess, yes, I guess for twins that is a long time.
That is. I mean, I guess the loaf wasn't done in the oven. I guess But.
No, he still had to be in there. But I will say, growing up with a twin, we basically shared the same room until we were 18. My mother dressed us the same until we were 15. It was embarrassing. And it didn't matter if I got in trouble or my brother got in trouble. We both got in trouble. It didn't matter who did what. So that also sucked.
Well, yeah, because she's like, I'm not going to play this game.
Yeah, you're both in trouble.
Exactly. You guys came into this world and you're going to
be together forever.
Yeah, she didn't delay his punishment by 15 minutes, did she? I mean, just to kind of keep that going.
I don't think so. She had a wooden spoon that we used to get hit with our names on it. And one day, I don't know what I did, whatever, but she whacked me upside the head with this wooden spoon. And I said, "That's not my wooden spoon, that's my brother's." And she goes, "Oh, let me grab the right one." And then she whacked me again.
Man, the wooden spoon was a threat when we were kids. Let's be honest.
Right. And to this day, she still has those wooden spoons. Gosh darn it.
Yo, that was no joke, those things. But it was a different time. I make no judgments, so My mom used to have a wooden spoon, I swear to God, that was this long for my brother, that hung above the fireplace. It was like for stirring a cauldron or something. Let's just say I learned a lot from watching my brothers and sisters as to what not to do. But, so what can we expect from you in the future? Are you going to be doing anything new? Are you going to try to expand? I kind of hope we can convince you at least to upload what you got to YouTube. Maybe that could be something cool. We could share this.
Well, for Board Game Blender, they used to give us 3 minutes, which is really not a lot of time to do anything. This is the game. This is a turn, and I like it. That's about it. And now that I'm on breakfast, now they give us 2 minutes. So that's even worse. So one of my ideas was to, kind of do an extended version of my segment, maybe, just a couple more minutes, and then post that up to YouTube. But yeah, that's, I always, since I started doing the Board Game Blender, I don't even know how many years ago. I
think it's
can't
been
remember.
about 5 now.
Has it been 5 years already?
I think so.
Oh my gosh. You're probably right. You are probably right.
Because I believe, Dice Tower went, they like Tom went legit in like 13, 14. So I think it's been, and Z came with him. So, and Jeez. Sam. So yeah, I think it's been the 4 or 5 years.
The time flies. And, I've said this to people that I've done over 100 episodes. with Board Game Blender and Board Game Breakfast combined, and I just barely scratched the surface of my collection. So I still have a lot to show.
I would love to see the retro director's cut. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So hopefully, so back to my story that since this whole thing started, every year my New Year's resolution. Okay, let's start something on YouTube. Let's start something on YouTube, but it just hasn't come to fruition yet. But hopefully, I will get my act together and do that. But like I said, I try to do one every week for Board Game Breakfast. It either comes out on Mondays or the live show on Thursdays. They never tell us what show we're going to be on. It's just they take half of them and do it on Monday, and then the other half will be on Thursday. There is no rhyme or reason or preferential treatment. It's just whatever Tom feels like. But yeah, I could be seen primarily on the Board Game Breakfast on the Dice Tower YouTube channel.
Well, I tell you, if you have 100 episodes, you already have more stuff on YouTube than I would have right now. So if that should tell you anything, there you go.
Right.
Like,
and another misconception about me is that when I first went to Gen Con a couple years back, and people literally thought that the only thing I played was retro games. I'm all, no, I still play brand new board games. So my collection is quite big.
yeah, it is funny. If you follow him on Twitter and Instagram, it's like, nope, he's not playing the retro stuff. I mean, you enjoyed that, but...
Yeah. I also enjoy new games also.
Awesome. So this has been a ton of fun, sir. It's been fun getting to know you. So if people want to find you on the internet, where do you think would be the best place for them to go?
The best place right now is Twitter, at Retro Board Gamer. If you want to DM me or follow me, I love to chit-chat with people, either DMs or on the public page. But yeah, Twitter at Retro Board Gamer.
All right. Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. So thank you, sir, so much for coming on the show. This has been a blast. We'll have to have you back next week, where I think maybe we'll play a retro board game. How does that sound?
Oh, yeah.
I know. We're not stereotyping here. It's cool. It's cool. So we're good. Thank you, Dan, for providing the beer. But I guess I should actually thank Gil for the beer, hey?
I just poured it.
It's an excellent choice. Excellent choice. So thank you at home for watching. And keep it old school the next time you game all night. Thanks for watching this week's episode. Join us next week when we play a game with the guest. If you enjoy our content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Be sure to follow us on all forms of social media. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are the best ways possible. Simply find us by searching for Game All Night Show. And of course, check out our website at gameallnightshow.com. This Week and Each Week is made possible through the generous support of donors like these. Be sure to subscribe below and check out our latest videos.
Punchboard Media, where we all
Bring something
to the table.
pull up a chair.
At punchboardmedia.com.
You can see my gray hair in that one.
Thanks for watching this week's
Like,
episode.
Skull just left
Join us
my
next week
brain
when we
for half
play
a
game
second
with
there.
the
I'm like,
guest.
what the
If you
hell?
enjoy our content, please consider
Nice.